This is an emergency live stream. Please stand by for a Smitty announcement. Alert! Alert! This is an emergency live stream. Please stand by for a Smitty announcement. Alert! Alert! This is an emergency live stream. Please stand by for a Smitty announcement. Alert! Alert! This is an emergency live stream. Please stand by for a Smitty announcement. Alert! Alert! This is an emergency live stream. Please stand by for a Smitty announcement. Alert! Alert! This is an emergency live stream. Please stand by for a Smitty announcement.
Live from SmittyOne.com studios, it's the Fantasy Football Show. Live! Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Take a lap.
What is going on, good people? We are back for, yes, another emergency live stream, and we've got quite a bit to talk about. No, this is not your Monday through Friday show that I'm doing here. This isn't the Monday show. We're still doing that at 7 p.m. Eastern per usual. But like we always do here on the show, we do emergency live streams when there is stuff to talk about. And we got to talk about A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, Terry Scary McLaurin. Are these guys headed toward a holdout? Or can you even hold out anymore in today's NFL? The answer is no. The answer is you can't truly push this thing past the 11th hour because of the mandatory fines, and these players looking for money can't afford to get fined over $40,000 a day. It's just not going to happen. But they can create unrest. They can create social media chaos, and this tends to move the needle when it comes to contract negotiation or even facilitating a trade. Like in the case of Deebo. Is Deebo wanting out? His fan base not the majority of it, but a big chunk of it is being ultra negative to Deebo Samuel right now during his little posture session, which is understandable from a business side of things. Look, these guys have certain negotiating tools at their disposal, and if you were in their situation, you might use them too. Some of them feel a little more childish than others, like the scrubbing of social media accounts, but it kind of depends on who does it, because when Kyler does it, and in conjunction with his complaining and moaning and being upset about this and that and not going back onto the football field during the final snap of his team's final play in 2021, it feels different when that guy scrubs his social media than when hardworking on the field Deebo does. And I know that sounds unfair, but hey, you carry yourself a certain way on the football field. It affords you a certain luxury of being able to do these kinds of things and not get the same kind of ridicule. But Deebo Samuel's still getting a ton of it. And let's be honest, the Niner fan base, I'm a part of one of the biggest Niner shows around. I'm not a Niner fan. I'm a Niner supporter because a bunch of my boys, they're diehard Niner guys. You know, my boy Dr. Raj. I got Crocky over here in Spaces. I have a lot of pals, man, that are ride or die Niners. So I have major respect for my Niner boys, but it doesn't mean I'm a Niner fan. This is all objective fantasy football NFL analysis for me. Okay. And I can honestly say that the Niner fan base, while it's one of the best fan bases around, I'm not saying the best. You don't have to come at me and say, oh, you know, my fan. They're one of the best fan bases, but they're also one of the most ruthless fan bases. Look what the fan base did to Raheem Mostert when he got hurt. All the threats he got, he got hurt. He didn't hold out. He wasn't acting strange. He wasn't, just trying to make a scene. This dude got hurt, and he got, like, death threats and such. Like, it's ridiculous. Deebo Samuel, same thing's getting tossed his way, and Deebo doesn't deserve that. Okay, respect this man. As we say on the Quad Box Niners show, pay the man, respect the man. Or at least trade the man and respect the man. But don't sling mud at him. Don't start calling him names. Don't threaten him or his family. Like, this is a man that put his heart and soul on the field and did amazing things for his fan base in 2021. And this is how you repay him, because the man wants to get paid, because the man was asked to carry this team on his back. And you're going to come out with threat. Like, stop it. That's ridiculous. You should be ashamed of yourself if you partake. I've been negative on Deebo's, the way he's gone about it. Not extremely negative. Just like, probably shouldn't be doing it this way, in my opinion. You know, I also feel like I'd be working out with Trey Lance. I get a lot of wide receivers go down to what equates to wide receiver camp, similar to tight end, university or whatever. I get it. And I'm okay with that in general, but I want Trey Lance to succeed. And when you see guys like Jerry Jeudy working out with Russell Wilson and excited to, I just want to see that from all the wide receivers wanting to make Trey Lance as good as possible walking into this season. And I think Trey Lance is going to ball. If Deebo's not there, of course there could be a little less effectiveness on the field right away. Maybe a little bit more of a learning curve, because Deebo's an amazing wide receiver that's going to help Trey along. But I still think Trey's going to ball. I want to see Deebo Samuel in that Niner uniform to help Trey Lance become that top 5 to 7, top 5 to 8 quarterback he can become in his second year. And don't get all crazy on me, because guess who did it last year? Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. I don't want to hear the sophomore, and he is a sophomore. He's not a rookie. Stop complaining about how he's only played a handful of games, and you can't call him a sophomore, Smitty. Yes, I can. And he is a sophomore. And he went through a lot of mental reps. He went through an NFC championship. He went through a lot of different scenarios that a lot of other quarterbacks that maybe played more as rookies didn't go through. So I don't care about those examples. I believe Trey's going to take a step forward similar to what Burrow did. And Burrow was coming off an ACL tear. Burrow had a lot of mental and physical obstacles to get over in the beginning stages of last season, and he still overcame those, and he had a lesser situation than Trey Lance will walk into. Trey Lance is walking into probably the most phenomenal and well-equipped situation that a sophomore or a rookie from last year, if they'd put him in, has ever walked into. You could argue like Mahomes and Andrew Luck. You could come up with certain parallel examples, I suppose, but this is literally the best situation that you can draw up for a sophomore quarterback, especially if Deebo stays. And if Deebo doesn't stay, look, we can talk those scenarios out. They're still pretty good scenarios. If you get rid of Deebo Samuel, you're getting a lot in return, so you're rebuilding in different ways. Example real quick, if Deebo Samuel, let's say, gets traded to the Jets for the number 4 or the number 10, let's call it the 10. The 10 and a second rounder. You know, Deebo's probably worth more to me. I personally think he's worth the 4 and the 10, but Jets fans seem to think when you go into a Jets space that they can get away with getting Deebo Samuel without giving the 4 or the 10. Like, oh, we'll give you a couple of 30s. Croc, I remember in your space somebody said that, and that's absolute asinine. You can't give somebody Deebo Samuel and still keep your 4 and your 10. And so, you know, you would at least have to get the 10, but I would want the 4, but whatever. Let's call it the 10. Let's call it a second. And then you take Stingley, or I don't think Sauce Gardner will fall, or you take an edge, whatever. However you want to grab to improve on that defense and make that defense not just top like 5 to 7, you make it top 1 to 4. Okay, you make the defense stronger. Yeah, you lose Deebo, but you're making the defense stronger. And then you bring in a wide receiver like Christian Watson. Well, how do you get Christian Watson if he's going well before 61, Smitty? Well, you trade your 61 or whatever pick that is. I think it's 61. And you trade that and the second rounder you got from the Jets. You make one more trade. You make 2 trades total. You move up and you get Olave, or you get Christian Watson, or you get, in my opinion, Treylon Burks is the best wide receiver in this rookie class, the most capable of replicating a Deebo-esque, kind of career. I love Treylon Burks. You give me Treylon Burks and Stingley, I give you as good a team overall, even if you're moving some of the balance around of the team. Like if the Niners get a little lesser on offense because of losing Deebo, which may or may not happen because Trey could fill in that gap very nicely. But let's say it's a little lesser. Well, the defense is more improved. So worst case scenario, because I think Deebo will come around. He can't hold out. This situation, is the same or improves any way you look at it. And Ayuk, like, let's be honest. Anybody in here really raise your hand in the spaces and in the YouTube chat. Tell me if you really believed that Deebo was going to have the year he had last year. A lot of us, including myself, thought that it was going to be an Ayuk season. And if you watch Ayuk rookie highlights, if you're honest with yourself and you don't try and fib your way through this conversation here, you will admit that watching those rookie highlights of Brandon Ayuk, you saw exactly what we kind of saw at a Deebo in a very small sample size happen in his rookie year. The jet sweeps, all the running this guy did. When you rewatch, if you've forgotten, rewatch it. When you rewatch the Ayuk rookie highlights, it looks like Deebo. They were using him in that Deebo role, and a lot of us thought that's what was going to happen this year with Ayuk. I'm not fooling myself. Deebo is better than Ayuk. Okay, I don't want to have that discussion because it'll just frustrate me. Deebo is better than Ayuk, and I hate the examples of, Ayuk's a better wide receiver, Deebo's a better player and better weapon. Look, you asked Deebo to do something very unusual last year, which was half running back, half wide receiver. You can't then play the other side of this coin and say, hey, Deebo wasn't a good wide receiver, he was a good weapon, when you didn't ask him to play wide receiver the entire season. How are you going to sit there and compare Deebo to another wide receiver when he played running back half time? There were games where Deebo would get 1 or 2 catches and have a monster game because of the rushing production, and then people are going to actually analyze that and say, well, Deebo hasn't proven it as a wide receiver, as if he wouldn't have had you used him the right way. It's crazy logic to be like Deebo wouldn't have done well, or that Deebo's not as good of a wide receiver when he didn't get asked to do that role. What it tells me is that if you could take Deebo and say, Deebo, I know you're a wide receiver. I know he played running back in his past, but you're a wide receiver. Go play running back, and he succeeds at that role, and people actually say things like, well, he's not as good of a wide receiver prospect as maybe Ayuk. I think that's asinine. Look, this guy delivered when you asked him to do the unusual. What makes you think if you plugged him in full-time, full go at wide receiver, he wouldn't absolutely dominate that as well? Now, granted, there's the injury concern. Is he worth $85 million guaranteed? That's what it's going to take. Deebo Samuel's watching every one of these contracts drop. Even the quarterbacks and the defensive backs and every single contract is going to cascade down into Deebo's contract and make his contract, in his mind, worth more. And every time one of these big players signs a massive deal with guaranteed money, guess what happens? Deebo and the Niners become further and further apart, which means that someone's going to have to find their way back to the middle and go a little extra distance. Will it be the Niners? I doubt it. The Niners aren't the kind of organization, in my opinion, and if anybody wants to say otherwise, raise your hand and I'll throw you up. But the Niners aren't the kind of organization that I think is willing to sit back. Like, look at the Jimmy G situation alone. You know, messing up. Okay, let's bite the bullet, overpay, and it was our bad. We're going to go ahead and pay the extra amount of whatever it is. And in the case of Jimmy, it's like, okay, cut our losses and let Jimmy go. We miscalculated this situation. We didn't know about the surgery. And then, well, just hold on to him then. Like, it's like you go into a cul-de-sac and you keep going further and further back until you get your back against the wall. Like, that's what the Niners do. I don't think, okay, we set aside this amount of money for Deebo. It went up. We didn't expect the wide receiver market to climb. Does it sound more likely that the Niners would say, well, we're not spending, we didn't see this coming? Or, oh, we'll bite the bullet, we'll overpay now. I mean, I just think you're fooling yourself if you think the Niners are willing to now overpay because they miscalculated. That's not their style. And number two, if you truly wanted to sign Deebo right now, if you truly were willing to pay whatever it takes, if everybody thinks in July and August it's going to work out just wonderfully, like they're just going to, this is the way, the Niner way. They're going to wait. This is how they do it. They did it with George Kittle. Like, if you think that's how it's going to go and it's just, no matter what it is, we're going to pay it in July. No, it's not going to go that way, because if you had the money for it budgeted right now, you would spend now in order to avoid it going up later. You know, if you wouldn't sign Deebo when it was so much cheaper, what makes anyone think they want to give him more money later? So I don't know how it's going to shake out. I'll be honest with you. I feel like 50-50 on a potential trade. But will the Niners drag their feet through a trade process, let the NFL draft pass, and then now a trade's not even on the table anymore because now they no longer have picks to go after for the now, and it makes a Deebo trade not as meaningful. Like, that's what I'm saying. This whole offseason's been botched from the beginning, and it's still being botched. And I know everyone wants to be positive, but look, people need to be held accountable. People need to call out this Niners organization for the bad things they're doing and the botched situations they're a part of right now. Like, regardless of good, bad, like, I love this team. I think this team, within 2 calendar years, could win a Super Bowl. I put that on my Twitter Spaces, or I'm sorry, my Twitter, and this is the tweet right here. Didn't get well received by a lot. A lot of people liked it, but didn't get well received by a lot. There are a lot of people asking what I'm on today, that they want some of it. But I truly believe this team is built to win, and I truly believe Trey Lance can help Shanahan through the pitfalls that the man puts himself in and up against. Because Shanahan, let's use an example on the field. Shanahan backing off and taking his foot off the gas with play calling. Jimmy G couldn't get him out of that. Trey Lance can. Trey Lance can improvise his way out of those kinds of situations. Trey Lance is going to be good for Shanahan. And once Shanahan attaches himself and fully commits to this marriage between he and Trey Lance, he will support him through thick and thin. We've seen it with Jimmy G. All he's got to do is attach. Once he attaches, I don't think he'll let go. And Trey will carry him, and Shanahan will carry him. They'll carry each other. I think this will be one of those relationships that really does build. And once you see Trey Lance totally unleash and do magical things on the field, and if you don't think he can, I urge you to go watch his college film. I know it's lesser competition. I get people are going to always use that example with Trey Lance, but if you watch his film and you look at his stats, 28 touchdowns to 0 INTs during his full season, where he had 14 rushing touchdowns, 42 total touchdowns, 0 INTs. They literally were counting every game. They'd be like, is this the game? The pressure that was on Trey. His mother would put pressure on him, and Trey would be like, Mom, stop talking about it. Literally every game. Will this be the game he throws a pick? Is this the game he's going to turn the ball over? And he literally goes through the whole season making good decisions. If you want an example of a quarterback that can make good decisions when pressured, it's Trey Lance. It's the Walter Payton and Jerry Rice award winner that people seem to act like has no accolades in college and is coming from just a small-time situation playing against Pop Warner type talent is what people usually say. They don't know what they're talking about. Trey Lance delivered. Trey Lance had phenomenal numbers. He had adversity staring him in the face when they had a transfer come over to take his job, and that one season of Trey Lance almost didn't happen, but Trey stepped up and delivered. So you want to worry about Jimmy G? I'm not worried about Jimmy G. I want him off the team so the distraction's gone. I do think Trey will mature faster and feel the confidence that he should, the full confidence he should feel right now. And honestly, Shanahan should be ashamed of himself for a lot of reasons right now. One is not putting this kid in a position where you're publicly calling him out as your leader. Okay? I don't know about you guys, but it frustrates me when I see certain coaches be like, this is our guy. We're backing him. Even early on when they haven't even proved themselves. Look at McDaniel calling up Tua on the phone, FaceTiming him without even seeing him play in person. Literally, I would say McDaniel overshot this one, but he literally got on FaceTime on a plane and like practically put the man in his will. You know, like he overdid that. He overcommitted, but I love that when a coach puts their confidence behind a player. And then you have guys like, you got Peterson, who was removed from Philly. Sirianni comes in to Philly. They do the same thing back to back, these two coaches. Oh, Hurts. We want to maybe trade him. Oh, this is his, we'll give him one shot. Or Jalen Hurts, we'll maybe trade up and draft somebody. Maybe we'll trade him. It's never committing to the man, never having confidence in a young quarterback who hasn't even had a chance to develop yet. And you see these coaches like Bill Belichick come in, and Cam Newton has one of the better preseasons he could have had, and the Cam gets shockingly cut because Bill Belichick, the best coach ever, knew what time it is and understood the assignment. And Shanahan doesn't seem to know that game. He thinks it's more advantageous to be like, I'm not going to tell you who my quarterback is. Like anybody cares about if you switch it up and put Jimmy G in there. Like anyone's going to be like, oh God, we didn't prepare for Jimmy G. His 12 plays and 12 throws that he can make. Like there's no advantage in walking into the season, let alone a game, saying, oh, you know, maybe we'll throw Jimmy in there. So like it frustrates me. We hear little leaked pieces of information that we don't even know come from Shanahan that say, hey, you know, Trey's been assured he's a starter. We've heard that twice now from pretty well confirmed sources, I think. But in the end, Shanahan doesn't necessarily release it. And that information. So is it really coming from Shanahan? I don't know. But it should be coming from Shanahan. He should be walking to a podium right now and saying Trey Lance is our guy and he's coming for every one of you. And Trey would be better because of it. He doesn't gain an advantage, no one does, by trying to pretend like you're playing some coy game of who's our quarterback, Jimmy G or Trey Lance. And it's shocking to me there's still Jimmy G supporters out there. I don't even know what these people are going to do once Trey lights it up, because they've put so much trash talk on record about, they can't even support both of them. It's like, I'm a Jimmy G guy, it means I hate Trey Lance. You know, you can't even support both of them. Now, at the same time, if you're a Trey Lance believer, you don't support Jimmy. But honestly, I believe our eyeballs are correct in that Jimmy needs to be somewhere else. Maybe he's a backup in the NFL. Maybe he could start for 2 or 3 teams, whatever. I don't want to get into the semantics of that kind of argument and be like, oh, is he the number 33 quarterback in the league or 26? I don't care. 26 to 33, they're all the same quarterback anyway. They're not taking you to a Super Bowl. Now, you're going to say, well, Jimmy G almost did. No, the Niners carried Jimmy G to a Super Bowl. When you're a Jimmy G supporter and you come at me with Jimmy G's a winner, he took the Niners to Super Bowls, and what's your response? My response is I'm always thinking this in my head. It's a shame that people like that think the way they do, and Shanahan's included in that, because all I hear is that a Super Bowl win opportunity was missed because Trey Lance wasn't in the game. Had you had a better quarterback, all I hear is you would have won championships had you had a quarterback under center that wasn't carried game in and game out. Now, pre-ACL, you want to talk about Jimmy G having a lot of upside, whatever. I don't care about that. That's in the past. Ever since that ACL tear, he's never been the same. Stop bringing up what he could have been. He's not that guy. So the question here, and the whole reason we're live, is not to necessarily discuss all that. It's to talk about A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, Scary Terry McLaurin, and I'm gonna bring someone up from Spaces real quick. After you ask your question, I'm gonna send you back down. But go ahead and ask real quick your question, buddy, and then I'll answer it as I throw you back down. So this is Who is this? This is Pay Deebo Now on Instagram or on Twitter. So we'll toss him up. We'll get his question. Trey Lance season is right. Media, glad to see you in here. Pay Deebo Now, trying to connect with you. It's saying it's not connecting. Keep trying. Once you connect, I'll throw you in real quick. But anyway, AJ Brown. Look, he's unhappy. Deebo's unhappy. Scary Terry McLaurin's unhappy. You have 3 wide receivers that also need contracts. So swinging it back toward the Deebo front, the moment one of these guys, let alone of 2 or 3, I'm sorry, DK Metcalf included in the 3. DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Deebo Samuel, McLaurin, all 4 want new contracts. The moment one of the 3 outside of Deebo sign a new deal, the moment that happens, guess what? Deebo's value goes up, not only fair market wise, but in his mind, and he's in a stubborn place. The Niners are in a stubborn place. This continues to get further and further and further apart. Every single contract that gets signed, especially wide receiver contracts, but even a cornerback, defensive player, doesn't matter, quarterback. Anytime someone signs a contract, the market is going to be adjusted upward, and like a spider web, it's going to pull everything it's attached to up slightly. So AJ Brown, let's say he dinks and he signs a $85 million guaranteed deal. You know, Terry McLaurin probably won't get 85 or 80, but maybe he gets 75 million guaranteed. DK Metcalf is sure to get 80 million guaranteed. Of the 3 players, and let's put DK on the screen too, even though DK is not participating in this holdout or this road to a holdout. He is also on this list, and I think needs to be talked about because he needs a contract. And DK Metcalf, of these 4 wide receivers on screen, AJ Brown, for those of you on Spaces, AJ Brown, Deebo Samuel, Scary Terry McLaurin, and DK Metcalf. Of these 4 wide receivers, 3 of which, the top 3, are not going to participate in off-season programs as they push for new contracts, according to Adam Schefter. DK Metcalf is the most likely, in my opinion, to get traded. I think DK Metcalf, you've got Seattle already blown up. I think McLaurin could be next likely, but we'll see. You have Seattle already blowing up. You got to ask yourself what's the difference in sending DK Metcalf packing if you're going to rebuild. And he's on his last year of his deal. That's when you usually trade a player so you don't lose him for nothing the next year. And if they don't feel like he's worth paying for whatever reason, because they haven't signed him to an extension yet, you got to think that he's potentially the most vulnerable to get traded. So DK Metcalf at the bottom of this list, even though he's going to participate in offseason activities, is the most likely to get traded. And maybe he's going about it the best way. He's showing that he can go to work. And maybe teams are going to be calling for DK Metcalf knowing he's not problematic and saying, give me DK. Imagine DK in Green Bay. How good Aaron Rodgers would look right now versus how he looks currently, where he's got Lazard the Lizard Man as his number one wide receiver, potentially and most, I think expectedly, going to get a rookie wide receiver in, probably Treylon Burks, maybe Christian Watson, maybe an Olave. We don't know who's going to fall. I think Burks would be an amazing grab by the Packers, and I think Christian Watson would be too. His raw talent reminds me of the canvas, if you will, of Devontae Adams when Rodgers got his hands on Devontae Adams. Christian Watson could be molded and sculpted into an amazing wide receiver in the NFL. He needs that kind of quarterback, though. Let's be honest. He's raw. He needs to be brought along similar fashion to the wide receivers that Aaron Rodgers has molded and sculpted. Look, Devontae Adams is amazing. He is who he is right now. You can't take it away. You can't tear him down. You can't say he's going to be a lesser talent. He might get lesser numbers in Las Vegas, but he's not going to be any lesser of a talent leaving Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, but he would never be even close to the wide receiver he is today without Aaron Rodgers. And some wide receivers would be no matter where they are. Adams was made by Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry, but he was. If you put McLaurin or Metcalf, Deebo's not going to Green Bay, so we won't even use that example. A.J. Brown, probably not, but you put McLaurin or DK Metcalf in a Green Bay uniform. These guys are already elite talents. McLaurin's a top 6 to 10 wide receiver. You can at me if you want. He is. McLaurin's a top 6 to 10 wide receiver talent-wise. His situation is garbage. McLaurin will never reach top 6 to 10 wide receiver numbers in this horrible situation, this death trap of a situation where they've got garbage musical chairs at the quarterback position, trash cans throwing him the football, and they expect him to produce. I think that's why he's vulnerable to be traded, because they know they can't utilize him. Why not get a whole lot more? Why not reset the timer on a new rookie wide receiver and some extra talent and draft capital that they can choose how to rebuild? Why not reset the timer versus have him go unused and not know whether you want to pay him because he's not really producing? It's like a double-edged sword. Like, you need to extend him, but you know you're not going to get the most out of him, so they're not sure they want to spend the money. Plus, they haven't seen the production, which you and I know is there. Potential is there. The ceiling's there. McLaurin in Green Bay, top 10 wide receiver, locked and loaded. McLaurin's Antonio Brown 2.0. He just can't be unleashed. And think about it. These kind of wide receivers, similar to Antonio Brown and Scary Terry McLaurin, these speedy guys knifing all over the field, they don't do as well without that quarterback that's overfeeding them the ball, laser locked on them. Think about Antonio Brown. Remember when Ben Roethlisberger would go down? Antonio Brown was by far the number one wide receiver in fantasy football, year in and year out. When Roethlisberger would get banged up and leave for an extended period of time, Antonio Brown wasn't even a wide receiver 1 in fantasy football. He dropped into the low wide receiver 2 range because he wasn't laser locked and fed the football. McLaurin's the same way. You put McLaurin in Green Bay, top 6 to 10 wide receiver, top 6 to 10 wide receiver numbers in fantasy. They're usually hand in hand. That's why people say, oh, Smitty, you do fantasy football. You don't do NFL. I do NFL. Look, if you do fantasy football analysis, you're a leg up on somebody doing just NFL analysis. A fantasy football analyst, I'm sorry, has more knowledge than a regular just NFL analyst, because we do both. We're looking at numbers. We're looking at outcomes. We're looking at end-of-day production, which you can't get to if you don't evaluate the talent. It's why I always say, similar to how Moneyball shocked baseball and how it revolutionized some things in terms of scouting. And I think fantasy analysts, the right fantasy analyst, not every fantasy analyst, the right fantasy analyst brought up into an organization for scouting reasons would absolutely flourish and have good insight on who, like for example, you look at a guy like Tyler Huntley, that no one seems to think is starter capable in the NFL at the quarterback position. You ask a fantasy analyst, or the right fantasy analyst, they see more upside in him than guys like Baker Mayfield and Carson Wentz. Like, maybe Tyler Huntley wouldn't develop. Maybe. I know a lot of people judge him for accuracy. He's so young. It's ridiculous when people judge a guy like Jalen Hurts and say he's trash. When Jalen Hurts hasn't been developed yet. He's had 1 year. Look at Josh Allen. I'm not comparing Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. I'm not. But if you judge Josh Allen off his rookie year, accuracy, mechanics, where would you be right now? So guys like Justin or Jalen Hurts and guys like Tyler Huntley, like it's somebody looking it from a different lens is going to see these things differently. That's why I seriously think fantasy analysts someday, maybe they breach a front office somewhere. Maybe the right analyst gets brought up. It seems like a pipe dream to analysts everywhere right now. But someday a team is going to take an analyst seriously that knows what they're doing, that has a track record of finding and spotting talent. The Russell Wilsons, the Mahomes, and you can say Mahomes was easy to target. Not when he was coming into the NFL. No one... When I dropped my 1 to 5 QB, Mahomes will be a top 1 to 5 quarterback. When he was a rookie, it was laughed at. When I say right now Trey Lance can be a top 5 to 6 quarterback and that the Niners can win 1 Super Bowl within the next 2 years, it's laughed at. Just like when I said the Bengals will win the division last year, this time in the offseason, it was laughed at. These things are laughed at before they happen. Because we're not here stating the obvious. We're trying to be ahead of the curve. We're trying to predict things that haven't happened yet. That makes for uncomfortable conversations. That makes for a lot of Michael Jordan gifs that you get. You know, those animated gifs of Michael Jordan laughing at the iPad, crying with the iPad. I saw it all day with my Trey Lance will win a Super Bowl within 2 years. I got nothing but I got some of my Niner people that are in spaces that applauded it. But it's uncomfortable when you say something that hasn't happened yet and you're trying to predict the future. And not saying I'm right about everything, but I'm saying there's a process here and this process works. Wouldn't be here for 20 straight years doing this if we were swinging and missing and throwing mud at the wall. That's not how we do things. You guys know that in here. But AJ Brown, let's say we got a request here. Let's put Couch on here real quick. Couch, I'm gonna have you ask a question. I might send you back down after because I got to keep the flow of the show going. But ask your question, good buddy. Appreciate you being here.
What's up, man? This is probably the first time I agree with you the most, probably 100%.
First time?
Yeah, I agree with most of the stuff you say, but yeah, man, you're dead on with Jimmy G, with the wide receivers. I got some puppies in the background, but I just got 2 questions. So, did Christian Kirk screw up the wide receiver market, the guys you're talking about now? And should I think this is a good debate. Like, I mean, we talked about DK, but like, should the Seahawks trade him? Because that's so dangerous. You got a young stud, that you've always wanted, but like, they are tanking. So, what do you think?
Yeah. Okay. I'll answer both those. Great questions, Couch. Appreciate you, man. All right. Let me answer those real quick. So I would say, to answer the first one. Well, let me answer the second one. Should DK be traded? The answer is no. No. Seattle shouldn't do it. And also, on top of that, they shouldn't have traded Russell Wilson. Like, if you would have asked me, and people did, and we talked about it on the Quad Box all the time, will the Seahawks trade Russell Wilson without a backup plan? And I don't want to hear that they've got a backup plan, like their backup plans, this or that. Like, if you do a trade and you don't have the backup plan in motion in conjunction with the initial plan, you don't have a backup plan. You have ideas that may or may not work out. If you would have asked me, would the Seahawks trade Russell Wilson, a top 5 quarterback, and don't act like he's not. If you say he's not, you're speaking from your own perspective, from your own team, your own place of hatred for the man. Let's say, you're a Niner or a Cardinal fan or a Rams fan. You might say he's not. Russell Wilson's garbage. We own Russell Wilson. We live rent free. Russell Wilson, like, take that out of the equation, okay? Russell Wilson's a top 5 quarterback. Don't get it mixed up. And he's going to prove that in Denver. Denver could win the Super Bowl. I have the Chargers or Denver Broncos going to the 2022 NFL Super Bowl. And Russell Wilson, look, I don't care if he's got to get used to this offense. Look at Stafford getting traded to the Rams. Boom. Championship right away. Brady getting traded to the Bucks, championship right away. That's the formula right now. I'm not saying that's a lock to happen again, but let's not pretend like it's a problem that Russell Wilson's just coming in. He's being handed a better offensive line, a better defense by far. He's getting handed quite arguably the number 2 overall running back in the NFL, in my opinion, in Javonte Williams. He could be the number 1 running back in the NFL. He could lead the league in broken tackles like he did last year at halftime work. He could lead the league in 20 and 40-plus yard runs. This guy's a monster, Russell Wilson to the moon. But if you ask me, would the Seahawks make a trade Russell Wilson away, and not have a backup plan, I would have told you no. So they already blew it up. There's no way of salvaging this team. There's no quarterbacks left to acquire. They can't go and get anybody. Like they're stuck with no one. They're stuck with Jimmy G's or drafting a rookie. And it's like you could sign DK Metcalf to a long-term deal, to answer the question Couch had, which is a great question. Should they trade him? They have 1 year left on a nothing burger season. The 2022 season for the Seahawks will be garbage. 3-4 wins max. I mean, does anybody think they're going to win more than 3 or 4 wins? I highly doubt it. 3 or 4 wins max. And why run one more year of DK Metcalf in that mess without getting something for him? And do they want to extend him and pay him big bucks when they just blew up the team? They're not in win now mode. They're in rebuild mode. So you got to think it's smarter to pay a young wide receiver. Even if you got to land the wide receiver, that's the difficult part. And that's where I agree with you, Couch. I don't know that it's a very smart move, but from their new idiotic perspective and lens, it feels like a decent move for them to not be holding DK Metcalf at a huge contract in a bad situation where they can't even utilize it. So it's like you already made the decision to blow it up. You might as well send DK Metcalf away, get another young rookie wide receiver on a fresh deal, a low deal, and start rebuilding this thing. But they botched it from the beginning. Russell Wilson should have never been traded. DK Metcalf shouldn't be traded in this sense. The other question, what was the other question? Couch, I'm going to bring you back up again. What was your first question? I already forgot it. I already forgot your first question. A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, Scary Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf are the... Couch, what was your first question?
Yeah, I mean, I with that last one with the Metcalf and Russell Wilson, man, I kind of disagree. I think the Russell Wilson trade was good. You didn't really mention the O-line. Like, there was a guy who was just, he wasn't happy with the Seahawks. It wasn't a formula, right? This isn't just like fantasy football, X's and O's, numbers. Like, it just, they knew, right? And I think everybody else knew, like, it just wasn't going to be a Super Bowl with Wilson. So I think they got a good haul for him. I don't think it was an easy decision. The Metcalf thing is a great debate, though, so that's great that you went over that. So I like that. But the other question was Christian Kirk, screw up this wide receiver market. Now people are hungry.
Yes and no. Thanks, Couch. Appreciate you, man. Yes and no. He didn't help things. But Christian Kirk's deal is different than it looks. Like, if Christian Kirk, let me answer it this way. If Christian Kirk waited to sign his deal, he probably could have maybe had even more money because the guaranteed money wasn't there for Christian Kirk, but the per season money was. Like, so he's getting paid a ton per season, and that kind of did jack up the market. Like, per season, that reset some things for sure. But his deal is a 4-year deal. It was like $74 million or $80 million or whatever, but it was only 2 years of it guaranteed, $37 million guaranteed. $37 million for Christian Kirk is a lot. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me started either. But it isn't the same as if he would have got $65 million guaranteed or something. So it was the beginning of it, and I think it could have triggered some things for sure. And it definitely set like a little bit of a climb for the per year basis. But I think what was crazy was the Deshaun Watson. The 230 guaranteed, the $230 million guaranteed is the scary part for, I think, GMs, teams, and everybody that's looking to sign these players. Like that's the scary part. And I think Lamar Jackson's dropping the ball. It was definitely like a trigger. The Kirk thing was a trigger. But I think people speak about it as if it was guaranteed, the whole thing, and it wasn't. It's $37 million guaranteed, which is still a boatload. But it definitely could trigger. It triggered some things because he was a lower wide, not a bad wide receiver, but he's not a wide receiver 1. He's a wide receiver 2, like for a team. He might be the Jags wide receiver 1, but he's a wide receiver 2, and to get that kind of money, it did set the bar. The Mike Williams $60 million was a pretty big one, but really. The one that's going to shock worlds and make things crazy is Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is probably going to get extended. Cooper Kupp's getting like 13 or 14 million a year. They want to right-size him. Now, the contract will right-size his contract. They're not going to give him a fresh like 27, 28, 29 million a year. They're going to take his 13 to 14 million a year and right-size it to probably 27, 28, 25, whatever they end up choosing. Whatever Kupp might be more team-friendly with it. Who knows? But they will right-size his deal, but it still will speak volumes when Cooper Kupp is getting paid $70 to $80 million guaranteed, or maybe more. Maybe it ends up being more if you add it to his other contract, because that's all people are going to report. His current deal now looks like this. Not, hey, this is what we bumped him. It's going to be like, what's his deal now look like? And his deal will be 25 to 30 million a year instead of 13 to 14 million a year, or whatever he's getting paid. Once Cooper Kupp gets his deal, and let's say one of these wide receivers does, Deebo Samuel is going to have lofty expectations, and guess what? The Niners won't adjust theirs. So it comes down to this. So will A.J. Brown ultimately hold out? No. I don't think he does. Will he hold out until the 11th hour? I believe he will. Will he force and facilitate a trade? I believe he could. Will A.J. Brown be playing for a different team in 2022? Ultimately, I say no. I say his holdout probably invokes a contract extension. I think of the receivers here, he's the most likely to get extended. The team, why? Think about the makeup of these teams. Deebo and A.J. Brown, their teams, the Niners and the Titans, are winning teams. These are teams that even if you have disbelief in which team's going to do what this year, they're still winning record teams. They're still playoff contending teams. The Titans were the number 1 seed last year. Whether you think you're going to fall apart or not, whether you think Derrick Henry is going to fall off the face of the earth, whatever, doesn't matter. They believe they are potentially a number 1 seed in the division. They still think they can be that. They're not going to let A.J. Brown go, in my opinion, because that would be like what Seattle did, blow it up when you don't necessarily need to. Now, Seattle was in a tough division. They probably wouldn't have been winning, so I can understand wanting to rebuild. I can, but they definitely blew it up. And to keep DK, we'll talk about DK in a second. So A.J. Brown most likely to get extended. The Titans feel they can win. They will figure it out. I think they may try and push their luck, but A.J. Brown holds out to the 11th hour. It's going to make it uncomfortable. It's going to cause a lot of chaos. They probably will extend him, the most likely to get extended. Deebo Samuel, the Niners can win. The Niners can win, whether a lot of people agree with that or not. The Niners can win. Deebo Samuel is vital. They need to sign him. The difference is I don't know that they're going to bend as much as the Titans will bend. And Deebo did it for 1 year. Not that A.J. Brown hasn't had his injuries and he hasn't really been able to put it together for a string of seasons, but you kind of know what you got with him. You kind of got the longevity already proven, I think, in A.J. Brown. It's more about can he stay healthy, but he's going to do it. He's not like a 1 year wonder. I'm not saying Deebo is, but people have a right to say that he could be. Like, you have a right to judge Deebo and say you've done it for 1 year. And Deebo's got the 1 year left on his deal, but you can still franchise tag him. And not that you couldn't franchise tag everybody here, but I'm just saying the Niners in their mind, I think they're not wanting to necessarily pay him what he wants, and Deebo's got to bring his expectation down. He's got to be comfortable with $60 million guaranteed. If Deebo gets offered a $61, $62, $64 million guaranteed deal, and he doesn't accept it, like 20, let's say 20 million, let's say even like 19 million a year, just under 60 mil guaranteed, or let's say it's 20 million a year for 3 years and a fourth year team friendly option. So that's 20 million a year times 3, 60 million. If he doesn't accept that, that's going to be on him, because I don't think the Niners are going to give him 80 million. It's just not going to happen. So Deebo's going to have to, and I think he will, because in the end, 60 million in one hand and 0 in the other, it's gonna mean something to Deebo. I understand he wants to get paid like the best wide receiver in the league. I know he wants to get paid. Some say, we don't even know if this is true, if it didn't really come from Deebo's mouth, so we don't know if it's true. But some say Deebo wants to be the highest paid non-quarterback. We don't really know if that's fully true, that came from his mouth. But he's not going to be. Not after one season. You only have so much leeway, and I think Deebo should be lucky and feel lucky to get 60 million guaranteed, to be quite honest with you. So Deebo, it's going to be up to Deebo whether Deebo blows this up even and makes it bigger than it has to be. But the problem is the Niners need to step up and do it now. I keep talking with a lot of very, very knowledgeable Niner people like my boy Raj and Crocky and everybody in here that say the Niner way is July or August that this deal is going to get done. That's where I have a problem with the organization. I have a problem if Deebo doesn't want 60 million. I have a problem if the organization wants to wait till August. Pay the man. The man put his body on the line, did things that no other wide receiver did, and you're going to make the man wait and go through camp and drills and all. He doesn't want to do that. He's going to hold out. He's going to cause unrest. There's going to be no continuity. There's going to be no rapport between him and Trey that needs to be there. Pay him early. Step out of your comfort zone, Niners. Don't do the Niner way. Put the man in a position to come back early, because he's not gonna. This conversation that's supposed to happen in the next day or two or whatever is not gonna go well, because Deebo wants his money now. The Niners screwed up by not extending him earlier when he was cheaper. You can't keep going down this road and expect things to go well. Both sides need to come together. Deebo needs to lower his expectation. Maybe his expectation is low, so we don't really even know that. But if it's higher than 60 mil, he needs to have a reality check that he's done it 1 year, and 60 million is going to be a good amount for him to get. 60, 65. He's not getting 80. He might want 80 if Cooper Kupp signs, if A.J. Brown signs, he's going to want 80. And that's going to be where the problem is. That's where the Niners are dropping the ball. Sign him early so you don't have these other contracts making him feel like, okay, every one of these contracts makes me feel like I'm devaluing myself. Get him signed. Do it. Pay the man. He deserves it. 65 million will seem like a bargain 1.5 years from now. It'll be laughable that there was even hesitation at 65 million. The cap's going up massively, and this is going to be a bargain. Do it now. If you need money, cut Jimmy G. In a worst case scenario, a backup plan is cut Jimmy G, give the 17.5 million to Deebo for 2022, let him ride into the season with $21 to $22 million this year, so he'll play. Otherwise, he will be disgruntled. Will he play on $4 million? Let's say they offered him $20 million, like total. Let's just say they offered some dumb amount, like we'll give you $20 million guaranteed total. And Deebo's like, I'm not doing that. Deebo's still going to play. He can't afford to hold out. It's $40,000 a day. That's $1 million every 5 weeks. He can't hold out. So give him a way out. If he doesn't want to sign a long-term deal that's not to his liking, give him $17.5 million you can get from cutting Jimmy G right now, add it to his $4 million contract, and give him like $22 million something a year for this one season. And then if you franchise tag him, it's going to be like a $28 to $30 million franchise tag. And then you can try and sign him on the tag, and if not, trade him on the tag. If not, play him on the tag. But in sum total, the dude will be getting close to $60 million. Or sorry, 50-something million dollars totally guaranteed in the 2-year span if you right-size his 1-year deal now. It happened with Marshawn Lynch, right, Crocky, you said? I think Croc left. Marshawn Lynch, they gave him a 1-year bump without anything. Just here's free money for doing what you did and what you're about to be asked to do again. You give him that $17.5 million, give him $22 million this year. Let him feel comfortable that if he is franchise tagged, that's $30 million. That's $50 million, and he only had 2 years on that. $50 million, 2 years. That's pretty good. In a sense, that's better than a 3-year deal, $60 million. You know what I'm saying? Have a backup plan ready to go. Terry McLaurin, very likely to be traded because A.J. Brown, Titans are in win now mode. Niners, Deebo Samuel, win now mode. Washington, no, not win now mode. Vulnerable to be traded. DK, not in win now mode, even though he's reporting to off-season programs. Most likely to be traded. Of these, most likely to be signed, A.J. Brown. Second most likely, probably Deebo. And most likely to be traded, DK, and then Terry McLaurin. I will be back at 7 p.m. Eastern for the usual show. This was an emergency live stream. Appreciate every one of you. Appreciate you in Spaces. Sorry I didn't get you up here to ask a question, Kevin. Join me at the 7 p.m. show on YouTube, thefantasyfootballshow.com, or you can click on the link in my Twitter bio. And for those of you watching, you already know where to find it. Subscribe if you're new. If for any reason you're watching this and you haven't subscribed yet,
Hit that subscribe button if you're new, and wipe your feet at the door.
wipe your feet at the door and ask me a question. I answer every single YouTube comment that you guys drop. Test me. Try me. I'll see you all a little bit later. Thank you, Spaces. Thank you, everybody, for being in here. I'll probably do this again. I'll go live on Spaces during the 7 p.m. show, and we'll talk more about this. Appreciate you all. YouTube, peace out.